Would you please pray with me? Holy One, turn this text with us. Where it mirrors us, help us to see ourselves. Where it challenges us, help us rise. Where it reveals your hiddenness and goodness, make us attentive and receptive. For we read these tales to better become your people, people of covenant and blessing for the world. Amen. Way, way back many centuries ago, not long after the Bible began, Jacob lived in the land of Canaan, a fine example of a family man. That has been in my head all week, and Norman was about to go, Jacob, etc. How many of you know the story of Jacob and his favourite son Joseph through the lyrics and the tunes and performances of Andrew Lloyd Webber, Tim Rice, and of course, Donny Osmond? I grew up in the Technicolor Dreamcoat generation, and it was quite tempting this week to just break all of the public worship copyright rules and play a bunch of your favourite tunes from this show. But you can do that for yourselves. YouTube is full of them. Maybe do that later today. What I want to do today is to turn this text from the tale from Torah and to deal with an issue that came up this week when some Cedar Parkers gathered with me on Zoom to explore this text in preparation for today. Quite early on in our session, one person said, I know he's in the Bible, but if Joseph is supposed to be the hero, he is, quote, pretty stupid. And at that, the floodgates opened. Another person said, what a tattletale. And we joked together about 17-year-olds that we have known and been, noting the wisdom and regard for others are not traits common among late adolescents. And as for the brothers, well, some of you have been brothers, or had brothers, or been the female equivalent. What a family. Parental favoritism. You'd think Jacob would know better, but then again, he was always a self-centered heel. Sibling rivalry in this case may be a little justified, the pompous little twerp, but not to the extent of murderous, self-deceiving mob brutality. Except we know how easy it is for that to overtake families, nations, dreams. What on earth is this story doing inside the covers of a book called Holy? That's the issue. I asked the group after we'd done that first little bit about stupid Joseph, where do people get the notion that the Bible is about good people? And the answer so quick was, well, from you, from the church, from parents, from the way we were taught the Bible, from Veggie Tales and even rock operas. Somehow we have gotten this erroneous notion, well and truly embedded in ourselves and in our culture, that this good book is a guide for holy living, and therefore everyone in it is supposed to be a role model, a saint, a hero. Well, for any dreamy teenagers who might be watching this morning, be warned, do not share your self-aggrandizing dreams about your future fame and fortune at the expense of your family with your family. It will not go well. If Joseph is a hero, he's an anti-hero, a model of what not to do. 6 weeks now, we've been turning these Torah tales. We've twisted and squirmed as Abraham lied his way out of trouble, and as infertile women have machinated and schemed, and as foreigners and slaves and concubines have been used, abused, and hung out to dry. And we've shaken our heads as birthrights have been gobbled up with lentil stew, and Joseph's close encounter with the holy last week leaving him hip-wrenched. And we preachers, Daryl, Helen, me, Sean, we have contorted ourselves to try and find some gospel, some good news in these twisted tales of the most dysfunctional first family we'd ever dread to encounter. So, my job today is impossible, but I'm going to try it anyway. This book, from beginning to end, including the Gospels, is not about holy people. It is about ordinary people. It's about good people who mess up and about a lot of bad people who get it right. And it's also about this vast middling group of people who are this complicated mess of good and bad and hopeful and despairing, arrogant, feeble, fraught, depressed, ecstatic, settler and invader, weak and strong, fearful, feckless, you name it, compassionate and selfish, poor and rich, insider, outsider, all of this in rapid succession through the course of every hour of every day. This book is a human record deposited over millennia, passed down, cherished and abandoned, translated and cast in stone, wielded, hated, loved, and sometimes even read. It's this motley compilation of humanity's oh so complicated relationship with the holy, with God. And if there's anything in it that makes it holy, it's that these human encounters with divine mystery, that despite our infinite capacity to screw up, God has an even greater, if that's mathematically possible, greater infinite capacity for fidelity, love, and that God shows up in the messiest of families with forgiveness, new life, redemption, every single time. Even when in my puny judgmentalism, I think God should let the rotters rot. Now, I know that in a second here I'm going to get ahead of the narrative, because we left the reading today up on that cliffhanger, that sort of hit play and binge watch the next episode to see what happens next with Joseph. So sorry, Steve, spoiler alert, it's going to take decades and chapters for these odd dreams of Joseph to work their way through to a God-filled redemption, and you're going to need to come back next week for that. But it's there. And it's there in this book every single time. This book of human crassness is punctuated by the heartbeat of God from beginning to end. It's a trigeminal heartbeat. Ba-ba-boom. Into the thick of our anti-heroic human fecklessness, God comes with a love so stupendously, fiercely faithful that it wreaks redemption for the world. It's a heartbeat that is repeated from slavery to Exodus to promised land. The rise and fall of kings to exile and then return. From a birth outside the walls to a refugeed family, through life and death to resurrection. From cradle to cross to spirit-filled communities of the way. This book is holy because of this stubborn, eternal, forgiving, redeeming love of God for the most ridiculous, dysfunctional family of humanity you could ever dream of. The family that we are part of. There are no heroes in here. There are people just like us, who are every bit as capable as Joseph, we, of parading in our spectacular coats for a season until we find ourselves at the bottom of a waterless well, unable for the life of us to see redemption, even when it drags us up by the scruff of our neck and plonks us on Egypt-bound camels. Let me bring this home to August the 9th, 2020, the 75th anniversary of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Aboriginal Day for the world, and the 21st Sunday in COVID season. If this heartbeat of God in this story and in the book and in our lives is to be believed, and I do, then let us also dare to believe that there is hope for the abolition of nuclear weaponry from the planet 75 years later. Let us choose, let us dare to believe that there is hope for a global, sustainable, redemptive response to climate change. Let us dare to believe that there is hope for our generation of the dysfunctional human family to learn how to be reconciled to one another. Let us dare to believe that there is hope for this in our generation to uncouple humanity from the sin of racism. Let us dare to believe that there is hope for a recovery from pandemic across this globe that will make the world kinder, more humane, and leaves no one outside and behind. Why? Not because of human heroes, but because ordinary people, dysfunctional people like Jacob the heel and like his vain twerp of a son Joseph, ordinary people like those of us who are worshipping in our jammies on the deck this Sunday morning, ordinary people like us getting caught up and daring to believe in this redemptive dream of God, the dream of God that will not rest until all are forgiven and free, until all is just and all is good, as God always intended it to be. Amen.